What kind of people are we? What kind of people are we?
Attention crew, this is your Captain Caliban speaking. This is a supplemental episode of Enterprising Individuals, where we bring you news and tidbits from the world of Trek, also interviews with special guests, and a few little surprises along the way. And that way is nearly over for this year. We've got just a few weeks left before the USS Enterprising Individuals reports for refit, and we take some holiday R&R. Before then, however, we've got a few more shows before Christmas. This week, Mikanhana of the Just Enough Trope podcast is back on the show to discuss some of the latest Trek news, and if you're a Patreon subscriber, you know that I've been recapping Voyager episodes in order, starting with the first season. It's been an enlightening experience, and Mika herself has also started a rewatch of Voyager, and we decided to put our heads together and give our evaluation of Voyager Season 1, similar to our review of Deep Space Nine Season 4 from last year. The first season of Voyager had a lot of heavy lifting to do in regards to introducing a brand new ship and characters, a new setting, and a new network, really, and the quality fluctuates, to be generous, in the early years of the show, culminating perhaps with the release of Threshold in the middle of the second season. You know Threshold, we've talked about it on this show. If you were unsure of Voyager and you hit Threshold and decided that you were done with the show, I guess I couldn't blame you. But one bad episode does not a bad series make. So this week, Mikanhana and I are sharing our personal thoughts on the first season of Voyager and a little bit of the second, and asking ourselves if it's worth crossing the threshold to the rest of the show. And that's going to take up most of this episode. In fact, this is where I'll leave you and turn you over to the hosts of the Just Enough Trope podcast. Before that, I wanted to remind you that our Star Trek Discovery podcast, Discoverage, will be returning this week with a review of Ask Not, the newest Discovery short trek, so keep an eye on our feed for that. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/EISTpod to become a member of the crew and gain access to our subscriber content. Also, when shopping on Amazon, please click through our Amazon banner on Enterprising Individuals or use our Amazon product links in the show notes of our episodes. That really helps the show at no cost to you. Don't forget to like and follow us on social media at EISTPOD, and join the Just Enough Trope Discord and chat with us about all things pop culture. That's it for me. Next up, Trek News and Voyager Season 1. And with that, let's get underway. Well, here we are in the Just Enough Trope recording studios, which really needs a better, fancier name. Something really badass.
Something badass. Ooh.
The command center, but something better than that.
Something sci-fi sounding.
The source.
The epicenter.
The epicenter, yeah. These are like geologic terms.
The
core.
I like the
Aaron
core.
Eckhart.
I like. Yeah. Okay. That movie is horrible.
We're getting colder, ironically.
Yeah. Right. You would think we would be getting hotter.
You've got like 10 forward. This is 11 forward. Somebody's done that before.
Oh yeah.
So we go 12 forward.
There you go.
Just beat him.
One
right
better.
There. Yeah.
Double
I saw a picture on. This is like an old picture, but it just surfaced recently on LeVar Burton's Instagram, where he was on a cruise, probably a Star Trek cruise.
Probably.
And there was a lounge that he was like, I found a place to hang out. And it's called 10 Forward.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming. I don't know how the decks work on a Princess Cruise line, which I won't. I won't sing the song this time, but one of the floors has to be 10, and if it's somewhere where it would be good to have a lounge, then that would be 10 forward, assuming it's at the front of the boat.
So it wasn't.
Why isn't it 10 aft?
I don't know.
Right, aft and stern.
Yeah, I don't know. Or would you? Is it a big ship? Is it a bow, or is that only a small ship?
The bow is it's just your hull, right? It's the front part of your hull.
Okay.
All right.
I'm thinking of canoeing. So
a lifetime of watching Star Trek has not educated me nautically. Canoeing.
Yeah.
Your canoe has a bow?
I thought it had a bow and a stern, right?
Look there, off the starboard bow.
Or am I like
someone has dropped their cooler full of sandwiches?
Am I like totally like just mind farting what the front of the canoe is called?
There's aft. Sorry, aft. Okay, aft. We've got it now. Fore and aft.
Yes.
So yes, and then the bow and the stern.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so we've got forward. Yeah, you wouldn't just say 10-4. That's like,
no,
okay, good buddy.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
Right, I
Your
think we
truck.
proved
Yeah.
ourselves horrible, not ready to go out to sea, but hopefully we're ready to talk about some Star Trek news. Thanks for joining me on the show again to
Absolutely.
round up the news in the inimitable Just Enough Trope style. What's been happening recently on the Just Enough Trope podcast?
Well, what hasn't been happening? We just recently talked about some apocalyptic Nick Cage films.
Aren't all Nick Cage films apocalyptic?
I think a surprisingly large amount, yes.
Even like the isn't the Weatherman? What's the one where he
Oh, boy.
Don Cheadle? It's like is an angel, and it's sort of a it's a wonderful life type thing, and Taleone is like his wife. And
I think I have.
even that is sort of like it's like the end of like one of his lives, the end of the world as he knows it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, has he ever been in a film where it's just like, yeah, all right, these sandwiches are great?
I don't think
The
so.
end.
I don't think he casually does anything.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah, we specifically talked about Next and Knowing. Yeah, Knowing was not terrible until
That's
you
an
get
Alex
to the
Proyas
end.
film.
Yes.
yeah.
What else has Alex Proyas?
The Crow, Dark
That's
City,
right.
Gods of Egypt, a lot of films that are kind of out there, but I admire that his vision, but I don't know if we're going to see a lot of films from him in the future.
Right.
He's just, you read interviews with him, and I think he's become kind of embittered with the whole sort of edifice of Hollywood. But then again, like maybe make your films better.
Yeah. I mean, that is a thing
There's
to
this
do.
balance between like crazy stuff and getting and pushing the envelope, and I think
Yes.
like Dark City is a great example of a film that really kind of presaged some of the concepts that you would see and would be lauded in later releases. I won't say anything because I want to spoil that film at
I
all,
don't
but-
think I've seen it.
But yeah, it's a really
So-
weird movie, and I saw it when it came out, like at a midnight showing, and I was
Okay.
already kind of drowsy, and I walked out of there
Did
having
that
no
add to
idea.
it?
Yeah, I had no idea what was real and what wasn't, and yeah, it was a really weird
Wow.
feeling.
Yeah.
But hey, if he wants to do a Star Trek film, I say let him have it.
That would be. I could see him actually doing a good job with that.
Yeah, imagine
Potentially.
a Star Trek the Motion Picture with motion, where like stuff actually happens in it. I think he could really push it
Yes.
to the limit.
That would be great. We also recently covered the latest Terminator film, Terminator Dark Fate. And we talked about, in preparation for that, we talked about Terminator 3, 4, and 5.
The good ones.
Yeah, because we wanted to punish ourselves. I think the sixth one, Dark Fate, is actually better than those three that I just mentioned.
Well, the thing about looking at the bad ones is that it lets you understand what makes a good film and a bad film in a Terminator film.
I think so.
And at this point, I think there's more bad than good.
Yes.
Or maybe it's at 50%. So when this new one came out, if you've seen the bad ones, then you know, are they falling into the same traps as the old bad ones?
Right.
And yeah, I saw the movie and I was pleasantly surprised with it. I was not expecting much and I thought it was okay. It's too bad that people didn't seem to agree, and I don't think there's going to be another one of these things.
Yeah, it is too bad. And yet there's bubblings about maybe them doing a TV series. And it's like, guys, Sarah Connor
did that.
Chronicles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Saw that.
So, yeah, I don't know.
What's Summer Glau up to?
Exactly.
Get her out of mothballs and let's do this.
No kidding.
Well, what's coming up on the show?
At some point, we're going to be talking about His Dark Materials, which is new on HBO. And I actually just very recently finished reading that. Like, as of a couple days ago, finished reading that for the first time. So I think we'll probably also talk about the book as well as the episodes.
Did you ever see the 2007, 2008 movie?
I did not. So maybe that's something we could do as well. I
Well,
don't know.
you don't have to watch that movie.
No, okay.
No, that's... Well, okay, look, I just got done lecturing everybody on The Terminator. So, yeah, maybe watch that after you've watched the ostensibly good stuff.
Sure.
So you can go, oh, that's why it's bad.
Right.
Okay.
Although Sam Elliott as Lee Scoresby, he can't really do better casting than that.
No,
And
you can't.
and it makes me question the casting that they did do for
Well,
the series.
yeah.
But maybe I need to see it.
And they want to get somebody new in there, but that's one of those things where, what is it? Elliot, was he in the Marvel movies? He played Thunderbolt Ross in the Ang Lee one, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
He might have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Or no, here's what I'm thinking of. Judi Dench as M, right? You got Judi Dench as
Yes.
M with Brosnan's Bond.
Yes.
Then he goes away. You bring Craig in. And even though it makes no sense because it's like a prequel, it's good casting. You just keep her around. So she's M
Right.
Still. That's what they could have done with Sam Elliott, but
Yes.
alas, they did not.
They did not.
No. Well, all that sounds good. People can find out more about Just Enough Trope on the internet at justenough.trope.com and on Twitter at @JustEnoughTrope. Let's get into a little bit of Trek news, and there isn't a ton. We're still in this sort of holding pattern. I wish in a perfect universe we'd have more Star Trek 4 news because that would be getting closer to getting out, but
Yes.
it's not going to come out because it doesn't exist.
Okay,
It doesn't
wow.
seem like it's going to anytime soon. So yeah, not to get your hopes up. No news on that front.
Okay.
But there is some good news in the world of the lives of the Trek actors. Anthony Rapp just announced recently on his social media that he is engaged to longtime boyfriend Ken Ithpol.
I heard about that.
Ithafol.
I have no idea.
If
I
you've-
would probably butcher it.
If you got a lot of vowels in your name, you got to get ready for people to stumble over it. But
Right.
something like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Happy for him.
Yeah. And they had been together since 2016,
Okay.
according
yeah.
to this somewhat prying article that I read.
By prying, do you feel like it went into their lives a little bit too personally?
Well, I don't know if I guess when you're a famous person, you have to get used to people knowing about your personal life. But like,
Yeah,
why do they
yeah.
know exactly? There's a funny, oh man, I can't remember now, but there's a very funny lady on YouTube that does these comedy videos. She's Australian.
Okay.
And I can't remember her name. I don't know how to help you find her. But anyway,
That's all right.
one of her videos is called Who Measured Taylor Swift? Because it's just like a comedy about like things in her life. And so she's on the internet and she's like, wow, she seems pretty tall. How tall is Taylor Swift? Taylor Swift is 5'11" or whatever. She's like, who measured Taylor Swift? And then
Yeah, did
she
you go
becomes like
into her
obsessed,
doctor's office
going
or
down a
something?
rabbit hole. Like, how tall is Chris Pine? How tall is Anthony Hopkins? And like finding out like, how do they know how tall these people are? So anyway, they know how long these guys have been dating. But anyway, they're getting married.
That's very cool.
Yes. So that's some good news. Here's some bad news.
Uh-oh.
It turns out that Star Trek the Animated Series is leaving Netflix on December 1st. Or I guess
Yes.
by December 1st.
I think, yeah.
December 1st, don't look for
Right.
animated series.
Exactly. I read about that, and I'm kind of curious as to why, because it's like the only series of the Star Trek series that is leaving. You can still find it on Prime, funnily enough, but it doesn't even sound like. And we're doing things to make sure it comes to CBS All Access. There's no news on that front
Well,
whatsoever.
every single one of these, I'm sure, is administrated separately, right?
Probably.
So it's not like one goes, they all go. Even if you did have some kind of package, I don't think the animated series would be included in that package, right?
Okay.
It's
It is kind of a
something
separate
an
entity.
afterthought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's the canary who's starting to look a bit peaked as far as the streaming wars go. And
Yes.
this is going to, of course, it'll still be available on Amazon Prime
Yes.
to stream. And it is, of course, on CBS All Access. But as the months and days go forward, we're probably going to see some of these things drop off.
Okay.
Amazon is tight-lipped about their contracts and what they've got deals for and dates and things like that. So we don't know if any of the other shows are set to leave anytime soon. But when you see a available until ...
Yeah.
don't be too surprised.
So it is available on CBS All Access. I didn't realize that.
It is.
Okay, great. Shows you what I know. So
And it's not cut off on the top, so you miss the jokes and the alien names and stuff. Did you hear about this?
The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Disney Plus, for those who don't know, of course, Disney owns Fox now. Disney Plus is streaming all The Simpsons, I think, or at least most seasons of The
think
Simpsons.
so.
Like the
Yeah.
first quarter century of The Simpsons, which
Right.
seems like a dream come true, but apparently, I don't know who's running this thing, but they took the whole idea of, okay, many of these episodes are in the original 4:3 format, not 16:9. And I don't know TV. Like, people are going to freak out because they've got black bars on the side of their screens. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
But to try to cut that off, ironically, they expanded it. And, of course, cut out the top and bottom of the frame. And there are jokes that are in there.
Yes.
And even if there weren't jokes, I don't want to see some It's like when you go to your parents' house and they don't know how the TV settings work.
Right. They don't
and
have
they're
it set up right.
They're doing that thing where it's squished into the 4:3, but it's supposed to be in widescreen. So everybody is like basketball players and is really tall. And you just look at your parents like, how do you live like this?
How is this your normal?
Well, Disney wanted to get around that. They're treating all of us like our parents, and they tried to do this. But don't do that.
No, people are going to know. Your fans are
Give
nerds.
people the option.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. And the article that I read said that. Like, why don't you give us the option? So hopefully
Disney's
they'll
all about
change
options.
that. Well,
For sure.
Maybe not so much.
Did you see Patrick Stewart on Jimmy Kimmel the other night?
I did. He was delightful as always.
He is always delightful, and I tuned in thinking I was going to get some Star Trek tips and some news, some tidbits. Nothing.
Did not.
Wrong.
Yes.
We found out that he's got a dog.
Who's a pit bull.
18 years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis.
Which I think we all knew before.
Come on, Patty.
Yeah.
Stu, like, what are they going to fire you? Come on.
Like,
give us something.
Well, they should, like, they know he's going to be on Kimmel. They should give him,
Actually, they didn't necessarily know, did they?
I don't know.
Who's doing Charlie's Angels?
Yeah, I know.
I bet that's Paramount.
It might be Paramount. But just give him some tidbit that he can say, you know, like
Columbia Pictures.
Okay, all right.
It's probably all Viacom anyway. Yeah, give him one little thing.
Yeah.
The name of the ship is blah.
Blah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Give us something that we could sink our teeth into.
The dog is a rescue.
Right.
Something.
But
nothing.
I know.
Just his charm.
Yes. Which was great, but
which is enough. Yes,
yeah.
That's how a lot of the former stars of Star Trek are getting around these days. Speaking of former stars of Star Trek,
yes.
Do you want to talk about our experience at GalaxyCon?
Sure, yeah. Weekend? So we went to GalaxyCon in Minneapolis this past weekend, and there were actually quite a few Star Trek stars there.
Yeah.
In particular, though, we actually saw Jonathan Frakes speak, and we'd never seen him before. So that was a real treat. He is very funny. And I would say he's a professional for sure. Like he was joking around with a guy who's supposed to be like emceeing his panel, you know.
Well, he's been talking to crowds for over 30 years.
Well, that's true. Because like I think as you mentioned, like probably some of the first, if not the first conventions were Star Trek conventions.
Well, and not to mention his long service on Beyond Belief, but he always did those kind of shows whenever they did the behind the scenes thing where he's like, you ever want to see the Enterprise fly through space? Well, come check it out. And then he'd like, you know, in episode 222, Shades of Grey, the blah, blah, blah. And he'd just host those things. I don't know if he had any hosting experience prior to his role as Riker, but he clearly seemed to be into that aspect of it. And I'm sure that helped foster the directing side of his career.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was a cool dude.
Yeah, he was really great. Always awesome to see, you know, people that you admire and then like them actually being awesome in person. So
yeah, they really doubled down on Star Trek. They had him. They had William Shatner was there.
Yes.
Walter Koenig was there. Nichelle Nichols was there. And there's probably some other people.
George Takei.
Oh, yeah, of course, George Takei was there. And there's probably some other people who have been tangentially in Star Wars Star Trek things.
Yeah.
That were there as well. So that was really neat.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I saw afterwards, and I'm like, well, you obviously went to GalaxyCon. Somebody came up with like their dream buddy cop movie duo. It was Michael Rooker and Catherine Tate. So I don't know.
What?
I think that could be interesting. But who's getting the quips in? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. It'd be 2 times the quips.
Right? Like, who's the straight man in that combo?
Double quipping. This fall. Possibly. Yeah, that was fun. So, I mean, I don't know. They're mostly, I think this is a sort of departure for them because they're mostly operating in the Southeast.
Yes.
But just sort of jumped up to the Twin Cities where we're located.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get a chance to go, I think it's a pretty good con. You should check it out.
Yeah, I think so too.
Check this out.
Yeah.
If you can.
Okay.
If you have the opportunity. Do you know about Sandbox VR?
I don't know that I do.
Sandbox VR is a premium VR attraction where you go into a room.
Sure.
It's, like a 20 by 20 room.
Sure.
And it's your VR, but it isn't just you standing in front of your TV or sitting in a chair. It's a full-on walking around interactive experience.
Okay.
There's usually I don't know what they call them in the biz, but I'd call them gooses. I just want to imagine that all VR operators are like carnies. They've got like kayfabe that they, use with each other. So
sure.
What are the gooses? What are the gooses? Like fans that blow on you and an apparatus that you wear like a rumble suit type thing. Well, Star Trek has a sandbox VR experience now.
Really?
Yes. It is based on the world of Star Trek Discovery.
Huh, okay.
And it's called Star Trek Away Mission.
Away Mission, okay.
Yeah. So you are familiar with the Star Trek Bridge Crew video game.
Yes. Yes, which is also VR.
Yeah, there's the Star Trek Dark Remnant attraction at Dave & Buster's.
Yes.
Which is like a video game / ride situation.
Yes.
This is a 4-person interactive deal, and it's pretty much what it says on the tin. Like you are part of an away team that goes on an away mission.
Okay.
The idea is that you are beaming down from Discovery to an alien planet to check things out. But, I mean, it's a shooter, right? That's kind of what it turns into.
Probably, yeah.
It turns into...
like laser tag?
OK Corral, basically. Yeah,
right.
And so it's fully interactive. You have a... they give you a gun, you got a phaser gun and a tricorder. And then you've got that full body thing that I described.
Yes.
And so, like, when they beam you down... You see, it dematerialize and the thing rumbles, and then the thing blows in your face. All the gooses are happening. And then, you go on a little mission and then it turns into like a, interactive like fight type thing.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I guess my only thing is I would be terrified I would mess it up for everybody because I'm not like a really great gamer.
Hey, that's Starfleet. We support each other, right?
I'll be the red shirt. I
Somebody
volunteer.
is going to be there to pull that Jem'Hadar off your back.
Okay, great.
That's how this works.
I mean, at least in a VR situation, I would be able to turn, and walk around because I know how to do that in real life.
Yeah.
Just not video games.
There are a few different, it's not super physical. It's always dangerous in VR because you can't see your surroundings. But you can see the other players, so you're not going to run into each other.
Good.
There's firefights where you sort of squat down behind cover. You can't. There's no interaction with the cover, in the real world, obviously.
Okay,
but
sure.
you get an idea of where you are.
Okay.
And there are some. There's a lot of haptic sort of feedback type things that I talked about. There's some interaction too. If your teammate goes down, you actually physically like touch them to sort of like revive them, and then they can get up and fight again. And then there's the thing where they count scores or whatever. And,
sure, like how many guys did you kill?
There's like a highlight reel type thing. I was watching a video on IGN about it, and part of the experience is once you're done, then they take you in another room, and it's like when you go down the log flume, they take your picture.
Oh yeah.
They show you like a little like highlight reel of everybody doing stuff in there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So where is this at right now?
Well, that's kind of the problem.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of Sandbox VR locations right now. There is one in LA, one in San Francisco, and one in Vancouver. So it's mostly West Coast right now. There are 6 to 8 locations that are planning to open soon.
Okay.
So that is something of a drawback there. Also, it is $48 per person.
Whew. Well, I guess it's never going to be cheap, is
for
it?
a 25-minute experience, which is not great, but I've heard, and I don't do escape rooms, but I've heard that is comparable in price to some escape rooms that you do.
Okay, sure.
So think of it as like an escape room, just Star Trek and VR with lots of gooses.
I thought I saw something similar that they have that I think is a VR for Marvel.
Yeah.
And that actually, it was at Mall of America for at least a brief while. And now I think there's like a Jumanji one coming or something like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to, if a Star Trek one comes anywhere near where we are, maybe we'll have to check that out.
Okay. Well, I wanted to bring up that starting today and running through the 19th, it is Trans Awareness Week. And then on November 20th, it's Transgender Day of Remembrance. Transgender Awareness Week is a week where transgender people and their allies take action to increase awareness of the community of transgender people through educating the public, sharing their stories and experiences, and advancing advocacy.
That's
about
great.
the still very present issues of prejudice, discrimination, and violence that affect transgender people.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to know more, you can find out at glad.org. That's 2 A's, GLAAD.org/Transweek. And then, of course, the Transgender Day of Remembrance on the 20th is specifically to honor the people who have been victims of violence against transgender people.
Right. Okay. I mean, this is really great. I'm always glad to hear about stuff like this. The more you know, I feel like the better it is for everybody.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know?
mean, yeah, but you can know.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that other people don't
know.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
that's
once
true.
you know, you got to tell other people about it too.
That's very true.
Yeah, so check out the site for that, the GLAD site, if you want to get involved or organize an event. And then also you can organize or attend a vigil on the 20th for the Day of Remembrance. I also wanted to point out that the Women at Warp podcast did an episode about transness in Trek. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Jara Hodge, a friend of the show, is the host on that show.
Yes.
And they talk about the trans characters that we see in Star Trek. Of course,
sure.
we haven't had a transgender character in Star Trek yet. Hopefully that's coming soon.
Right.
But they talk about how the writers tried to tell stories that were trans adjacent.
Yes. I hear what you're saying.
If that's a word.
It is now, if it wasn't before. So, yes. I think species that people would probably talk about a lot is the Trill. But they're very complicated in that they can be either gender, but they most likely have been both genders multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
So
gender fluid.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously it doesn't map one-to-one on Earth people.
No, of course not.
Someday. We'll get there.
That would be nice.
Together.
Maybe have a transgender character on Discovery or one of the other Trek shows
Picard,
that are coming
sure.
up.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Holding out hope. Well, let's talk about Star Trek Voyager. Cue that theme.
Yes.
We can't afford to play the theme.
Oh, okay.
But it's a beautiful theme by Jerry Goldsmith. The show that started in 1995 to fill out a whole new section of the Star Trek universe, specifically a quarter of the Star Trek universe.
Right.
The Delta Quadrant. It started at the same time as DS9 was on, and of course TNG was ending, and was meant to fill in what they saw as a gap. They got this Old West cowboy show in DS9.
Right.
How are we going to get a ship out there that's still cruising the space lanes and getting into Star Trek trouble? And that is Star Trek Voyager. And like all Trek shows, Voyager needed a bit of time to find its even keel after leaving space dock.
Yes.
Keel is the bottom of the boat. I know that much.
Okay.
That's when you're even, then you're going straight.
Going straight.
Yeah.
All right.
And
That makes sense.
if you add to the fact that the show debuted in January on UPN as essentially a mid-season show with the launch of the network at that time.
Sure.
So it only had 16 episodes in its initial run.
Okay, that's why it was only 16.
So it was
Gotcha.
something of a hard start for not only the crew of Voyager, but the show itself. And I thought that since I've been doing my Voyager recaps on the Patreon,
Yes.
and I know that you've been watching Voyager from the start
Yes.
as well, we would talk about the first season of Voyager.
Sounds like a good deal to me.
Specifically, but also kind of the first season and the beginning of the second season, because
Sure.
a lot of that was the first season. They just ran out of time.
Yeah.
And also because second seasons of Trek series are a story in themselves. And this is an interesting story, I think, the story of the second season of Voyager.
Complex.
Culminating, if you will, with the essential midpoint of the season, the episode Threshold,
Oh my God.
which is, I think,
Yeah.
itself a threshold unto more Voyager. If you want to keep taking the ride,
Yes.
then the Lizard episode is that's gonna let you know where we're going here.
Yeah, you must be this tall
And
to
if you can handle
or
that,
continue to be this tall.
if you
I
are
don't
this as long as a giant salamander,
There you go.
then you can come along with us. So I thought that we would talk about the first season of Voyager today. What was your experience with Voyager before you started really digging into it?
I didn't really know a whole lot about Voyager. I knew it existed. Basically, my Trek experience was I grew up watching Next Generation with my family. We were really into that for whatever reason, that did not then spill over into Deep Space Nine or Voyager. So, I watched all of Deep Space Nine as an adult, and that's where I was kind of starting with Voyager as well. The main thing that I knew about Voyager was Captain Janeway. Like, I was aware of Janeway. I was aware of how big of a deal it was, of like how popular she was as a character. I actually had a really good friend in high school who was into Voyager, so it kind of makes it even weirder that like I didn't experience it for some reason.
Yeah, she fell off on the proselytizing there.
I guess so, but she was a huge Janeway fan. Like, loved her, And I don't know why like we never watched it. Come to think of it, it's really kind of strange. Watched a lot of anime.
You're too busy watching anime.
Yeah, exactly. And Takarazuka Review, which is the all-female theater productions in Japan.
Oh.
So she was super into that, too. So.
Do the Japanese like Star Trek? I mean, other than like everybody likes Star Trek.
That is a really good question. It's never come up, but I'm sure that people like Star Trek.
I also was somewhat unfamiliar. Mostly because, and I was reading an article about somebody who was talking about their experiences watching the show when they were a kid.
Sure, yeah.
Because they're younger than I am. And how they just weren't like aware enough to really hold on to it. Then once it had left air, they were older, and then they were seeking out TOS. I've heard about this DS9. Of course, TNG is always all over everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think Voyager sort of fell through the crack for them. It did for me as well, because it reached, for me, a point where I was kind of like getting near the end of college, and I was just really busy with stuff.
Sure.
And I don't know. And maybe I did see an episode or two that made me go, I don't know if this is what I necessarily want. Mm-hmm. And you still had to be at home to watch something back then.
That's true.
And if you weren't at home to see it, then you didn't see it. So
right.
And I think that so that's however old I am, however old that person is. That covers a span, right?
It does.
I think for a lot of people, it is sort of a gap in their knowledge, or at least their love for Trek shows. Now, there are some people who that is, and I've talked to them on this show, literally what they grew up with. Like the first time they saw somebody shoot a phaser, it was Tuvok or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not true in all cases, but yeah, I've met a lot of people who are like, it just kind of fell off. Mm-hmm. And now I'm catching up because, as you know, Voyager is the most streamed Star Trek show on streaming networks.
Yeah, which I honestly find a little surprising in some ways, because, I don't know, like Deep Space Nine, like, love that show, love that series. And I feel like I kind of got into that one a little bit quicker than Voyager, too. So it makes me a little surprised that Voyager is the most streamed. But
I don't know what the availability of VHS, DVD, whatever it was. People that like DS9 own DS9.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I think they got it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so Voyager is, maybe they don't have it, and they want to give it a shot, and they end up watching it on streaming services.
Okay,
on Netflix.
Sure. Yep.
Knock on wood. Mm-hmm. And that's where that comes from.
Okay.
That's what I think. I don't know.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
I don't have the numbers. As you have gotten into Voyager, and you've seen pretty much the first 2 seasons?
All of season 1 and probably like midway through season 2.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What were your impressions? Like, what were your likes, dislikes? What'd you like about the show?
Well, I have to say Janeway is my favorite character, and maybe that's kind of cliched, but I thought about it for a really long time, and I was like, I have to go with Janeway. She's just like, I think they were like, what do we do for a Star Trek captain? What do we do that we haven't done? How can we do that? How can we do that in like a different way? And like, not only is she like a strong leader, but she also just stays very steadfast to the Federation and to her beliefs. Like, probably even more so that they're out like in the Delta Quadrant, where like some of the Federation stuff maybe just doesn't matter. It's like, we have to be true to who we are. We have to, uphold our ideals, because if we don't, nobody else is going to.
They are an embassy, like the way that an embassy
right.
in a foreign nation is basically a piece of that country's territory. You know,
Yes.
the French embassy is France. Voyager is the Federation.
Yes, exactly. And I also love, like, she never gives up hope. She's always trying to find ways to get home, which, I mean...
Is that what all those detours are for?
Yeah, well, or trying to find new ways to, like, approaching things or a situation.
Oh, look, a nebula. How was that nebula going to get us home, Captain?
I know, but I just feel like she's a really positive leader. And even when they go through some, like, really difficult and kind of horrible situations. And I guess what else I like is... I kind of liked that they had to combine these two crews. I thought that was that's something different, you know, the Maquis and the Federation, the Star Trek people who had gone to Starfleet Academy. And also, like, Tom Paris is there, and, like, he, you know, he would not have been there if it wasn't for Janeway. And, like, she could have decided, I'm going to lock this guy in the brig for the rest of the time. But she's like, no, he's a vital part of the crew. And, like, he, like, proven himself to be, you know, worthy or, like, trustworthy or what have you.
Why is he there?
I don't know.
Didn't they just head out to the Badlands and just kind of get into trouble and find the ship anyway? Like,
yes.
What did he do again?
Well, fair.
Anyway,
but apparently he's a pretty
here
good
he is.
pilot.
I guess he's a pretty good pilot.
Yeah.
I really like, at least at the beginning, and I'm pretty sure this continues, but, you know, on Star Trek, science is negotiable. Mm-hmm. I like that there's an initial focus on scientific stories.
Yeah.
The very first thing that happens after Caretaker is they run into like a black hole, basically a singularity. Mm-hmm. And it's not perfect, but they're dealing with a lot of the truth and reality is stranger than fiction effects of black holes and having to deal with that sort of thing. I like that they're working with like ideas of causality, you know, when they do their time travel. The third episode is a time travel episode, and they're not going back to like the roaring 20s. It's just like on this one planet.
That's true.
And so they're trying to figure out, you know, supposedly like terrorists blew up the planet. Like, are we the terrorists? Do we need to blow up the planet to leave? Are we trying to stop the terrorists? Like, what do we do? How does that affect what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. I thought the cloud was really interesting. That's where they find out that the nebula or whatever is like a living organism.
Right.
Because Janeway wants coffee. She almost ends up killing
it's all in
an
the
innocent
cause
creature.
Of coffee. Yeah.
But that kind of leads me to like one of the detractions for me of the at least the first season is that a lot of these feel like TOS or TNG episodes. I mean, like in TOS, like the immunity syndrome, they literally do this. They like fly into something that's as big as a nebula, but it's just like a single cell organism or whatever.
Sure. Right. So it feels like a repeat.
Or, yeah, kind of. Or, you know, B'Elanna gets split into two people. Or,
that's one of my least favorite episodes.
We've seen that before. So it's a lot of things. And again, it's the first season. They're just kind of throwing things at the Voyager wall and seeing what sticks. But I like the fact that considering, you know, knowing where the show goes, it gets really crazy later on. And so they're trying to do this kind of grounded storytelling at the beginning, for Star Trek at least.
Yeah, like trying to get us to figure out like what this crew is all about, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but then I guess we're just going to cram all of our likes and dislikes together.
Okay. Well,
I think the characters are kind of remain sketches, you know, for the first season at least. They are really just operating off of their pages in the Bible. Like they're just... Tom Paris is a brash jerk off who's going to say and do this. And oh boy, that Neelix, what a pain he is.
Well, yeah, I do think you have
probably
a point
the Doctor
there.
and Kes probably get the most growth in the first season.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, I guess Kes is technically...
And she's just hanging around in the corner.
I know, but she's like interesting, I guess, because she's not even 2, but yet, like, what rate do they grow, these Okampa?
Yeah, that's a cool science idea. Like the Okampa live to 8 or 9 or whatever, and so it doesn't happen often, but some people are like, so aren't you mad that you're only going to live 8 or 9 years? She's like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how long we live.
Right.
Although it is weird that they experience time at the same rate that we do, I mean, I guess that would seem kind of short, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Aren't you a little mad about that?
Right?
Yeah.
But apparently it's fine.
That's just the way it is.
Right.
And like interspecies romance, like you've got Kess, who's like this, immediately Tom Paris is like the wolf cartoon. And
right.
But yet she's with this goofy guy, Neelix, and there's never any question about, oh, well, I got to go with sexy Tom Paris. Like she's in love with Neelix.
Exactly.
He's
and
goofy looking.
I
loves
know.
him.
He looks like a fish man.
He's a goofy fish man.
Yeah, with a mullet.
Love that goofy fish man. Be together forever.
Yeah.
Or not.
But he's always jealous, so it just makes it worse.
Jealous Neelix is your worst Neelix.
Yeah, it's true.
And I don't exactly know, but I hope that shakes out, because you get a couple subplots with that in the first and second season, and it's like, this is your worst Neelix.
It is.
I like some of the weird ideas in the show. I think the phage is a really cool idea.
Yes.
That they do one or two other things with it, but it's just kind of just this early episodes. I don't know where you go with it, I guess, but
yeah, but it's
just like the problem with Voyager is like, wow, that was really cool. See you later, and they just have to keep going. Like you'll never, after a while. Like, it's halfway through the second season that they actually, like, we got to deal with this Kazon problem. This is a problem.
Yes.
And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, all the Kazon you pissed off are 5,000 light years behind you. Like, how wide is their civilization? The water doesn't work on their ship. What kind of empire could they have?
Right. I know. And it turns out it's a really broken empire that's really fractured.
But I mean, like, Voyager's faster than they are and has better technology.
Yes.
And so I know that they've got, like, there's Kazon gangs. And apparently, get a bunch of, like, white Yale writers and stick them in the middle of LA. And they're like, I got this idea for gangs.
Right.
Space gangs.
I know.
All right, guys. But yeah, so apparently, like, they've pissed off all these gangs. But it's like, if the gangs are on 10 speeds and you're in a Ferrari, ain't gonna be no problem with the gangs.
Right.
You're gonna hit that
that's true.
Bell, that bicycle bell is gonna be Doppler shifting behind you as you go. Angrily, ring, 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 ring. Big heads going back and forth. But yeah, the phage is cool. They're stealing people's organs. There's that episode where Harry gets. They find like a bunch of dead people.
Yes.
And Harry gets sucked into like another dimension where people die, but they come to our dimension.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
I know. And it's like they believe in an afterlife. And then like there's one guy in the infirmary who's like super nervous because like he's sick. He's dying, but he's not dead yet.
Well, I'm not saying it's a great episode, but Harry just basically talks the guy out. First of all, Prime Directive, dude. But Harry like talks the guy out of going through this thing, and the guy's like, I have some friends in the mountains. I could go live with them.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you do that before?
I know.
What an easy solution.
But at the same time, I'm going to lie to my family and let them believe that I'm gone to the afterlife.
Right. Why not find a way to bring him back to Voyager and then just drop him off on it? This is a bad idea, too.
Well, but it seems better.
Yeah, why not show Jerry Harden and his whole effed up planet that this is not, the emanations are false.
Right, exactly.
And the lady who's like, they bring the lady over and she's like, is this heaven? What's going on?
She freaks out.
And they're like, it's okay, don't worry about it. She's like, yeah. And then like kills herself basically. Or she like does this dangerous, they use a dangerous like technique on her to try to get a signal or whatever, and she dies, and they're like, oh, well, she died. It's like, you killed her, Janeway.
I know, right? And they're like,
Forget
well,
Tuvix.
it's what she would have wanted. And it's like, what?
I guess that's what she wanted anyway.
I know. But it's like super depressing. Like, you just like, well,
keep her
whatever.
around to do dangerous tasks around the ship.
Right.
You need somebody to clean out the plasma coils.
Yeah, right. I'm not afraid of death. I will do anything.
Try Neelix's new dish.
Yes.
I like what you said before about the Prime Directive being paramount.
Yes.
So to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it tantamount? Tantamount is the top, isn't it? Paramount is second to the top.
I don't know.
I think so. Yet you're going to have to break it.
I know,
at some point.
Yeah.
Prime Factors is a great example of them really struggling with the Prime Directive, where they need a race that could get them halfway home, and they're like, please give us the stuff.
I know.
Like, I don't think that we can give more pecan pie.
Right.
And some of the people on board aren't too happy with that, including Tuvok.
Well, and like Tuvok kind of goes around Janeway, and she's kind of like, "How can I ever trust you again?
How can I ever trust you again?" More coffee? You're back in the books, baby.
Right? But Tuvok is another like really interesting character, I think. He's probably my second favorite after Janeway. And I just like it because we haven't seen a Vulcan for a while, and the only other Vulcan that we're really familiar with is Spock. So
Sarek.
Well, and Sarek too. But I think Tuvok has, he's even tempered and he's very logical. But I think he's he's a little different too. Like he's a family man. Like he's married and has kids, and yet he's not freaking out that he's like billions and billions of miles away from them.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Give him show time.
Okay.
But yeah, he's just got to deal with it. And
right.
then, I mean, this is kind of beyond our threshold, if you will.
Yeah.
But in an episode like Meld,
yes.
where and apparently this is something else that Voyager does that I'm going to put in the dislike column. At this point in the franchise, you've got to really start questioning the things that you've come to believe or rely on. You go, well, how does it work exactly? What if we did? How does Warp 10 work? Don't touch it. Don't do that.
Right.
Threshold. And so apparently, like, they can just like paralyze or neutralize the part of your brain that controls your emotion. Maybe it's just like your amygdala or something.
Okay.
Right. So they do that, and then suddenly it's like Tuvok's like, yeah, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. Why don't you let me out of here? I'll twist Wormtongue's head right off. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Get broy. Broy Tuvok. Let me out of here, dude.
Right?
I wouldn't take away the Doctor's journey because it is an amazing journey, but
yeah, I would agree
once you can make a program that basically becomes self-aware, and then you can give it the ability to exist all the time and go anywhere. You just made a person. Like that's
I
can't believe I think it's season 6, maybe season 7, where they do author, and they're looking into like, well, is he alive or not? The guy is walking around.
I know,
he's
right?
writing books. Like this would totally change everything that we know about just humanity and existence and who's alive and who's not.
Right, and the show is self-aware. Like it mentions Data, and like I think season 2.
Yeah, and that great episode about the exocomps. I mean, the robot guys.
Yeah, the robot guys. Yeah.
Didn't love that one.
Well, it was okay, but I think it was one of those instances where it feels like this is well-trodden ground. It feels like we've done this before,
Well, yeah, but the thing is it doesn't. It's actually a pretty good First Amendment. Well, it's actually a pretty good Prime Directive situation.
Yes,
but it is a disaster, and there's just no answer. If we had just never been here in the first place, it never would have been a problem.
Right?
Why? The question that Q asks in TNG is, why should you get to be out here? And the answer is, hopefully we can make things better and we can help people. And Voyager hasn't hit that yet. A lot of the situations they find themselves in, they leave and it's worse than it ever was.
Yeah, that's very true.
And yeah, it just reminds me of, and I don't think that Voyager tracks this as well as something like Battlestar Galactica does, in that we have a military tradition. You got a president, you've got an admiral, and you've got this. And every single episode, the military way is challenged. And if we follow the letter of the law, it's if eye for an eye makes us all blind.
Right.
And so Adama has to be like, we're not going to do this anymore, and he's going to just let him live or whatever. And it just breaks some military law, but we've got to have a different way now.
Yes.
And this happens in Voyager, but I don't think it tracks. You can't, maybe there's specific like event episodes I think you can look at, but I'm not 100% familiar. But as I remember, it doesn't track all that well. You don't see Janeway going from like at the end of the Kazon episode where she's like, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. We're not dealing with the Kazon anymore. To some point later where she's like, well, we have to, this is a violation of the Prime Directive, but I got to get you guys home. What do we do?
Right. And
Isn't just leaving Seska behind a violation?
Probably. Yes.
Just letting her, because sometimes somebody does something bad, or like somebody like, Suitor's killing people, and they're like, what if we just dropped him off on a planet? It's like, well, You're dropping a guy off on a planet who's a totally different race. Who knows what he can build a plasma coil from the ground up.
Right.
How could that change the society that you've never contacted before? You don't know what it is. Like, your very presence here is disruptive.
That's absolutely true. And I have to say,
so Seska running around.
I know. That episode, State of Flux, where we first learn that she's the one who's been giving all this info to the Kazon. I actually really enjoy that episode. That's one it's one of my favorites of season 1 because she's such a good bad guy. Like, I want them to give her more to do. She'll
be back.
Okay. Well, and we've seen her back in season 2 already, but I really would love to just see her come into her own, like, even more than she already has. But you just hate her when she comes on the screen. You're like, ooh, and you just feel so bad for Chakotay and like.
Yeah, but when you think about like the standout Maquis characters, she's one. Yes. But then we lose her.
This is very true.
I love Martha Hackett. I don't love Seska necessarily. I don't think that we ever get. I don't know how long you could have gone with the audience knowing that she's a bad guy. There are those little flashes that you get in season 2 where crewman Ding Dong, I can't remember his name, but you get that one guy. He's always calling FaceTiming the Kazons.
Oh yeah,
like,
I know.
Hey, I got some stuff. And they're like, who are you again?
Right.
I don't know if you think we would just do that, but if there was some way that you could like keep Seska around and have her sort of mixing things up still, but she's gone, and then it's just now she's just crazy baby Kazon lady.
Well, I mean, that's true. You kind of write her off as a character.
The show at this point is only giving really cursory nods to its premise. The idea of the Maquis conflicting with the Starfleet crew,
right?
Them having trouble with the Kazon, the lack of resources the ship is supposed to experience. Like every once in a while, it's we're getting low on food, so we got to stop off on this planet.
We have to do rations.
But we did just build 8 more shuttles.
Right. I know. I feel like they're always losing shuttlecrafts too. Like, where do you get them from? Like, do you make the parts and then like just piece it together? Is that what you do?
I guess you can just replicate parts, right?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
If you had a big enough replicator, couldn't you just order a shuttlecraft?
Oh, just wholesale.
Fire engine red.
Right.
Well, they don't have that. This is a short range or exploratory ship. Well, let's talk about favorite episodes.
Okay.
If you have in your mind or written down a list of your top 5 favorite episodes, maybe we could sort of throw ours at each other.
Okay, sure. We've already talked about some of them, but I think my favorite episode.
No. We got. Come on, you're not a podcast. We go 5 to 1.
Backwards.
5 to 1.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, before you start,
yes.
What would it have been if we had got Genevieve Bujold instead of Kate Mulgrew?
I don't even.
Did you ever see the film on that?
I don't even know. No,
you haven't seen that?
I heard about it.
Yeah, you can see it on YouTube.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out.
It's too bad. I mean, she is a good actress. Like, I've seen her in some movies, but it was just not. You can tell that if Kate Mulgrew read for the part before Bujold was cast, along with some other people. I think Susie Plaxon, Susan Gibney, like a lot of like marquee Trek, female actors had read for the role, but they just went with the movie star. And if Kate Mulgrew is what they wanted, then it's like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Because right away you're like, oh, I get who this character is, like right away.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
But it would have been a completely different thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that, casting really makes or breaks a show. And
well, yeah, but it would have been like, I don't know, I guess she wouldn't have been on the show without getting like good storylines, but to me she seemed less forceful, less direct. And so maybe you would have got something like Discovery, where the captain is there but they're not the center of the show.
I see what you're saying.
But on first season Voyager, who takes up the reins? Neelix?
Yeah.
You want to follow Harry Kim around for a year?
No, I do not.
Yeah, so we're all blessed to have Kate Mulgrew at the head of this thing. I think we
are. So
give me an episode.
It was kind of hard.
Number 5.
Okay, it was kind of hard for me to pick because there were a couple episodes that I was like, this is memorable, but I don't know if that means it's good or not.
It's your choice.
So I actually chose for number 5, I chose Caretaker, episodes 1 and 2.
Okay.
I think, the caretaker is kind of an asshole, like just bringing them over.
Just playing that banjo.
And like gonna die soon. I'm just really caring about me. I mean, I know trying to find somebody to replace yourself and you're running out of time, so you're frantic and you're just, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, I used to work in retail, and the holidays were always busy.
Can't wait.
We had this, it was a bookstore. We had this lady come in and she just grabbed like some like board games that were up at the front. And she was like, okay, I want these. And then she like got up there and she changed her mind like 5 times. And it was like, how can I help you? You know?
Put the banjo down, ma'am.
Exactly. So, I mean, it just it's that franticness, you know, and like just not thinking about other people, just focusing on yourself.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Mine would be, or my number 5 would be Time and Again.
Okay.
Which is that episode where they go back in time. They go to the
do
planet.
The time travel.
Yeah. It's a fun little mystery. It's actually a pretty good Paris episode. Like he's there. He bonds with the kid, and then it ends up being important later. And I mean, it's not a great all-time episode, but I thought it was a neat idea of that temporal loop. They served that pretty well. And a journalist was the bad guy, which you don't usually see.
Right.
The journalists are like, we're going to get the message out there. It's like, no, don't get that message out there.
Right.
So
like the journalists are Jake Sisko.
well, no, usually they're good guys.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty good. And Catherine Janeway is, she's hits the ground running. Oh, we're in a mall in some different time now. All right, let's get some clothes. Let's get all the things. And she's clearly had the training for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is the Phage, or just Phage, excuse me. I thought the Vidians were, I mean, just like, again, we're thinking of ourselves here, but they're an alien species that we haven't run into before because we haven't been in the Delta Quadrant before. And they just up and take Neelix's lungs, and it's like, you're just gonna leave him for dead, and then they capture them, and they're like, okay, now that our hands are tied, I guess we'll help you. And Kes, just being Kes and selfless, is like, I'll give Neelix one of my lungs. So, yeah, I think it's
she can't leave me now. It's a sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, exactly.
You're fine. Don't worry about Tom. That was my number 4 too.
Was it?
Yes.
All right.
I like that. That Janeway is just pissed.
Oh my God!
Like,
yes.
She's usually like, pretty even-handed about everything, and
yeah,
even keeled. Bring it back, and then she finds out that Neelix's lungs are gone, and she's like, "Oh no, you didn't." Mama Bear is in full effect, and I also like that the Phage was. There's just more cool stuff. Like they live in like an asteroid and they fly into the asteroid, but there's mirrors or something in there, so they can't see. They see a million Voyagers. They have to shoot a thing, and I don't know. It's just like a neat thing. They have the caves, so it's like, oh, wait a minute, these caves, they were different before. It's like, oh no, the Vidians, we're gonna get with them.
Exactly. My number 3 is another episode we've already talked about, Prime Factors. I've seen this episode a couple of times, and the aliens, they could have made everything go away. The Sicarians, I believe they're called. They could have potentially maybe helped them get home a little bit faster, but they didn't want to share their stuff. And it's kind of like what you talked about. I mean, maybe they have their own prime directive sort of thing. I don't know. It just seems like they just don't want to share their toys. But they seem super cool and laid back at first, and then they're super
they want
controlling.
Their stories. Give me my stories.
Right? And then they want them to stay. They really, really, really want them to stay. Become one of us.
Right. Yeah, we've all had a friend like this. Or this is like, is this a good metaphor? I don't know. I don't have any experience with this, but like, this is like when your pot dealer wants you to hang out after selling you pot, right? You go over, it's like, we're good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you want to get high? It's like, well, I mean, I came to get pot for my own thing, not to play Nintendo with you, but
this transaction is over.
I don't want like to piss you off, so you don't sell to me anymore. So
right.
I guess we'll play some Nintendo.
Wear the scarf, Janeway.
Yeah, he's touchy.
He is.
Oh, touchy guy.
He really is.
My number 3 would be Caretaker, and we've said a lot about it already. It's probably, I mean, I know that the openings are always 2 hours.
Right.
You probably could have got it done in an hour. Although there's a lot going on in it.
There is.
And the sad thing is that there's a lot going on that we'll never see again. So you set up
That's true.
the Ocampan, colony or their planet, and the Caretaker and the Array and the Kazons and everything. And then we fly away from there after we blow it up, because that's what we do.
Yep.
But there's a lot of neat ideas. There's a lot of cool concepts. There's a lot of things that I think you haven't really seen in previous Trek shows. And it lets you know this is going to be a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're screwing around in New Zealand in the beginning. And then we go to the Badlands. And it's just like, yeah, I guess it's really long.
Right.
And you got Banjo Guy, who... He can speak English. I know that he is Guy's Board Games and he's looking for the right one, but he could have just been, I'm a blobby creature. I need to find some DNA for the right DNA. It's not you. Get out of here. Like, why didn't he just tell them what was going on? Instead, he's just like, I got to play the banjo. Leave me alone. I'm playing the banjo.
Here's some lemonade.
Right. Have some lemonade and some Kentucky Fried Chicken. But don't go in the barn.
Right. Do not go in the barn.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is another one we already talked about, State of Flux. I just really enjoyed them trying to, figure out who is the member who is screwing with us. Like, who is like the Maquis person that is lying.
And if there was any other Maquis people that were set up, it could have been them, but instead it's just clearly Seska the whole time.
I know.
Don't they like tease Carrie or somebody else?
They do tease Carrie, Lieutenant Carrie.
Well, we don't believe that though.
But no, we don't. And it's like, it's from her station, and like the way she like deals with it is like she like tries to like go out and prove like, oh, I'm innocent because I did this, and like now you have to believe me, and I hurt myself, and but then it ends up being her anyways, and then she's just all like, peace off, and like is like, I'm gonna go with the Kazon now. Y'all see me later. But I just really like how like she's set up as the bad guy in that episode.
My number 2 is Jetrel.
Nice.
That is, there's I think that everybody thinks of Neelix as the weird fish man.
Yes.
And I admit that not all of the Neelix centric episodes work for me 100%.
Sure.
Sometimes like mad crying Neelix is also not your best Neelix, but it's just you could see, this is a perfect Trek story. You could see this, and it probably has played out in other series, and now it's Voyager's turn to do it. And you get this figure, played by James Sloyan, who's really great.
Yes.
Who, he did a bad thing, but he is trying to atone for it. And is he really the bad guy? And our heroes, who are supposed to be enlightened and able to pity even Hitler, the worst people, ultimately do. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's really great for that. And I like the idea of like him trying to he's going to so he atomized all the people in the Metreon Cascade or whatever, but they're also still there, so he can they're going to try to beam them back into
right.
I don't know. It's a long shot.
It is.
And of course it doesn't work, but it was just really it was touching. I thought it was a good metaphor.
Yeah, it was definitely an emotional episode.
Yeah, sure. It was a good script by all involved.
My favorite episode from season 1 is The Eye of the Needle. I just thought it was a really great story. I like that they're able, through this very small wormhole, they're able to contact the Alpha Quadrant, and they get this Romulan leader of a science vessel, and I think Dr. Armour is his name, and they do all these tests back and forth. They think maybe this is the way they can get home. They're super excited about it. They're able to actually bring him over to Voyager, which seems super promising. And we're like in season 1, halfway through the season. And then they realize, we can't go home, but we can get our stories and like let our family know we're doing okay, and
here's a lot of email.
Right, exactly. And they
zip drive
give him that information, and then he leaves. He's like, 20 years from now, when you leave, I will put this out there. And then Tuvok is like, by the way, Captain Janeway, he dies 4 years before we leave. So
yeah,
and it's like,
and you have to know that Tuvok does his homework, so you have to know that Tuvok knew that a couple acts ago.
Oh yes,
and didn't say or do anything
because the Prime Directive.
Because he's like, you're just gonna hold my breath until this guy's gone. That guy totally dies.
I know, yeah. But it's like, oh my God, it's like, it's so bittersweet because it's like, if you could have just told us that, we could have told him to give it to somebody else or something like that, but it would have messed with things too much because he can't know when he's going to die.
Right.
That's just too messed up.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, it maybe got to people, but we'll have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
So it's just this huge emotional roller coaster, and it's just like, oh man, it's so depressing.
And it's this example of Tuvok, doing what he's got to do, taking the unpopular road and being the conscience, for good or for bad. My number 1 is Prime Factors, which flips that coin the other way, where Tuvok does what he thinks is right.
Right.
And it's against the captain's wishes. And they're never going to be friends ever again. They're friends next episode.
I know.
Things don't really track in Trek at this point. But that's okay still. I really like this episode. I think the Sakarans are, I think that they just fell flat. I don't think anybody liked them. They were planned to be a recurring villain.
Oh, really?
And I think that it would have been fascinating seeing a villain that was, it'd be like if a bunch of, if you yelled hippies at a VW bus that went by, and then VW bus does a bootlegger turn, starts coming back after you. And a bunch of angry. Actually, isn't there a Marvel villain? There's Marvel villains who are hippies in a magic space bus that like fight Thor.
Oh my god!
They're like, we're gonna get you. It's kind of like that. Like they're more Federation than the Federation. But what happens if, I don't know why that they would become the bad guys, but maybe they're just like, we got to get these buzz kills out of the Delta Quadrant, so they start coming after Voyager. Anyway, I just thought they were a neat idea. Nobody else did, but and I love when it gets flipped back around on the Federation. Like their high-minded, lofty values. They don't get to put them on other people like we do every week. It's like, well, what do you got going on?
Right. And we'll just kind of ignore the Prime Directive when it is in our benefit. I mean, like, yeah, okay, we'll give you our stories, but like, give me your technology,
Yeah, yep. I always like Prime Directive episodes.
Yes, they're good.
And Janeway didn't take an arrow to resolve
she did
it.
not.
So good way there.
Yes.
You said who your favorite character was. It was Janeway. Mine has to be Janeway too.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no way around it.
It's just like, how do you choose another character? I thought about it. I thought about it a really long time. And, I think Tuvok is a close second, but I also really like the Doctor as well. But my favorite has to be Janeway.
Yeah, mine too. I want to be more creative, but I don't have anything. It's Janeway. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a least favorite character?
Yes, and I don't know, we might have the same thoughts on this one too, but my least favorite is Harry Kim.
Oh, you don't like the episode where he's on Earth and he never left on Voyager?
I do not. That is probably one of my least favorite episodes of season 2.
Non sequitur?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate episodes. You can only stretch it out so long. And TNG, the episode where Riker is he's in the holodeck. He gets captured, blah, blah. Long story short, he wakes up. They say, oh, remember when you got hit by the thing? Well, it turns out that you'll pass out every 10 years and forget everything. And you have to relearn it. And so you're captain of the Enterprise now. And Ambassador Picard is here to do this treaty with the Romulans. And then slowly but surely, Riker realizes none of this is I don't believe any of this.
Right.
Let's end this charade.
Right, exactly.
And that comes at like the end of the third act. And you pretty much buy it up to this point. You don't think that they're going to really jump forward in time, but you kind of buy it. Whereas like non sequitur, I don't know. You just know you're not invested enough in Harry Kim to really care whether he gets back or not. And then every act he has to go, I'm not crazy. It's like, I think you're crazy. It just new keeps and the guy who gives him coffee is the linchpin to the whole thing.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's season 2.
And I just feel like he's kind of a zero and boring. And I hate to say that. I mean,
just because he's got a competing podcast.
Well, I mean, yay diversity, but I just think like he could have been written better. And I feel like it's also sometimes like his performance. Like, I just feel like it's like kind of lackluster. And sometimes or most of the time, I would say, I don't believe a whole lot of what he says. I want to like him, but I just don't.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I hope enough happens to change your mind.
Yes.
I would not say Harry Kim.
Okay.
Because
who would you say?
I believe that too. Well, for now, Tom Paris.
Okay.
Because he's just so grating. He gets cooler as the show goes on. I'd say anybody in Chez Sandrine.
Okay.
I just don't like that. It's so dumb.
The pub in Paris?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
And plus the fact that... Okay, so Tom Paris got laid in a pub in Paris, I guess.
I guess so.
He's going to subject everybody. What if ever somebody else wants to do a Vegas casino? Or like...
Right.
Oh, an In-N-Out burger or something. Everybody's got to go to Tom's pub every day.
I know, right? And everybody's like,
where
this
everyone is
great.
Programmed to find Tom super attractive. Yeah. Not my favorite. Well, okay, so we're set up here. Going forward, so, having seen up to about the middle of second season, anything that you would think is coming in terms of predictions, anything that you would like to see in future seasons of Voyager?
I have a sneaking feeling, and maybe I've heard this somewhere, so it's possible that my subconscious is talking to me here, that no one's rank will change during the course of the show. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm feeling. I feel like they will have to save Harry 15 more times. I feel like they might actually get in a war with a Kazon. I'm another one of my predictions is that Neelix's cooking will improve. And the holodeck will malfunction 10 more times. But I would love it if Janeway were able to finish her holo novel at some point.
Yeah, right.
Some more of my wish lists. It's a big part of what they are and what they're doing, but I would kind of like the crew to focus a little less on getting home and kind of enjoy the journey a little bit more. But that's kind of like asking Voyager to be something that it's not, I would like Seska to really become the big bad, and it would be awesome if she became a leader of one of the Kazon sects. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen because they're very male-centric and they don't like talking to women or working with women. They're not like, oh, you're an equal. So, but I
Your
think
head's
that
not
would,
spiky enough.
Right. But I think that would be cool if that happened. I'd like to see, and I think we'll get this, various relationships develop more, deeper friendships, some rivalries, maybe, romantic relationships. I think we'll get that. I would also like the Doctor to come up with a new name that he likes and he sticks with.
Oh, man. We didn't talk about worst episodes. Let me throw mine out there. Heroes and Demons.
And that was one of mine that I was like, memorable, but don't think it's really good.
It's talk about. I don't mind when the Voyager takes a detour. I don't like when the show takes a detour.
Yeah, it does.
It's totally self-contained. It's just one of those. hey, raid the costume department
I
for
know.
some furs and some helmets. And like, I get that it's the kind of fun thing that you can do in the holodeck, but
Right.
it's just Grendel, and there's just not a lot to it. And I don't
No.
really like it.
No. And again, they're saving Harry because he's the one who disappears.
Yeah, they totally are.
Yeah.
Oh, Harry.
So what are some of your predictions or wishes for the show?
1 million more holodeck episodes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see the ship really have to deal with a lack of resources. You know, you can't just have them take on 6 Kazon ships and report that hull breach on decks 3, 4, and 5, and then we're just fine at the end of the episode. Like,
Very true.
It's going to be a lot of Bondo on this thing.
Yeah.
I'd like them to really get challenged more and really consciously break the Prime Directive. You know, in a situation similar to Kirk going, well, we'll just give the other side a bunch of guns. Great solution, Kirk. But I guess this is at the height of Cold War mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
I'd like to really see that happen. I also want to see Janeway finish her Apollo novel.
Right? It keeps coming up and we see
who's
it.
in the attic?
Right?
Well, thanks for joining me to talk about Voyager. Having gone through all this, talked about the first season and part of the second,
Yes.
do you think that it's worth crossing the threshold?
I do. Although I gotta say, there are some points in the second season where I'm like, I feel like this is worse than season 1.
Yeah.
You know?
It doesn't do the thing where, like, TNG, TS9 started strong, but it started with a 3-parter.
Yeah.
So that was meticulously planned. And it had Frank Langella in it, so what do you want? It didn't do the thing where it dips down and kind of comes back up. And plus, they were burning episodes that were first season episodes. The 37s
Yes.
was supposed to be the finale of the first season.
I think I remember hearing that somewhere.
How much would that have sucked?
That's another episode. I just really do not like it. I do not care. I want to care, but I just don't.
It's so there's so little action, like so much. There's so much time them just standing around going, "Who are you? Are you commie Ruskies or whatever? Give me that gun." And nobody cares.
We don't
and
trust
then
you.
The last act is like, "Oh, so we figured everything out, and we let the 37s are going to hang out here, and they found enough technology to make this world like amazing, and they're going to have a whole civilization." And then there's like 2 minutes where they're like, "Some people are thinking about staying." She's like, "I don't know."
Right.
No, they can't stay. The end. Like,
right.
That's half of your episode right there. Like,
Yeah.
that thing I'm talking about where Janeway has to go out and be like the bad mom and be like, "Get your ass back on the ship.
Right.
We're going home."
Right.
To Amelia Earhart.
I know.
You're a human. Get on this ship.
Right? And she just like lets everybody make their own decision, which is not bad per se, but she even says like, we need at least 100 people to man the ship.
Yeah.
We're going to be
plunge these
SOL
toilets.
if we don't have that many people.
Yeah, but it does really pick up, and there are some great episodes in the
There are.
middle of the second season. Yeah,
Absolutely.
And if you didn't cross the threshold, you wouldn't get to Meld,
And Meld is fantastic.
which is a really great episode.
It is a really good episode. I would say it's one of my favorite of the second season so far.
I'm glad I listened to Thad and Stuart from the Delta Flyer podcast
Yes.
to let me know that it wasn't going to be great in the beginning of the second season, but to stick with it. And if you want to hear recaps and discussion of Voyager episodes, you can check out their podcast at Delta Flyer Podcast, at Delta Flyer Pod on Twitter. And Mikanhana, did you want to tell the listening audience about the new show on the Just Enough Trope Network?
Yes, we have a new podcast called Sailor Noob. It is a Sailor Moon podcast in which a superfan, myself, and a noob, Cal, talk about Sailor Moon episode by episode. And we talk about culture, fashion, food, all the details within the episodes themselves. It's a lot of fun. If you like anime, I say check it out. If you like Sailor Moon, definitely check it out.
It's kind of space, Star Trek.
It is
So there's
kind
moons.
of. I mean,
there's midnight and moonlight.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of out there. And they have some sort of magical powers. We're not really sure where they
They're
come
part
from.
of the military. They're soldiers.
You're right. They are.
And they're sailors.
Yes. Very
Sailors
true.
and soldiers. Who's
Valid
the noob
point.
now?
Okay, I just got schooled, everybody.
So check that out. You can find out more information at justenoughtrope.com or on Twitter at noob_sailor. Thanks again for joining me.
Thanks again for having me.